Now, this is interesting. Larry Elder walks into a room to debate Steve Coakley on his Hollywood races, right? So he's definitely the away team here, but he still walks in as a man with something to say. Let's get into it. Come on.
So, at this time, without further ado, I will introduce to you our first debatant, Brother Larry Elder.
They're booing him. Let's see how he handles it, man.
Starting already. Brother Anthony, Mr. Coakley, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for inviting me. Appreciate it. You know, David Duke, Jesse Jackson, and Prime Minister Netanyahu were walking down a beach, and they saw a magic lantern. Picked it up, rubbed it, genie came out. Said, gentlemen, one wish, whatever you want. You first, sir. Reverend Jackson said, I want every African-American male, every African-American female, every African-American child to leave America and return to their ancestral homeland, the great continent of Africa. Prime Minister Netanyahu said, I want every Jewish male, every Jewish female, every Jewish child to leave America and return to their ancestral homeland, the great state of Israel. David Duke said, hey, I have a small Coke. The, the point is that we seem to be searching for that wonderful time, that wonderful day when the clouds open up and the heavens shine and there is no more racism in America. Well, I got news for you. Mark Furman will never dance on Soul Train, and racism will never be completely eradicated in this country or any other country. When you have a country where 10% of the people believe Elvis is still alive, and 7% believe if you send him a letter, he will get it, we got some problems. And we'll always have these kinds of problems. I was talking to a buddy of mine named Carlos. Carlos happens to be Hispanic. Carlos very desperately wants to get into the motion picture business, and he's been pitching a sitcom to a bunch of Hollywood executives, and he hasn't been getting anywhere. So he's talking to me about how much racism there was in Hollywood, how Hispanics were discriminated against. And I told him much of what I'm going to tell you in a few moments. But I said, Carlos, forget about our argument for a moment. Let's talk about the big picture. Can you name me, Carlos, the Japanese-American actor who has been nominated for an Oscar, let alone has won one? He said no. How about a Japanese-American actress? He said no. I said, how about a Chinese-American actor? He said no. How about a Chinese-American actress? He said no. I said, when you look at the groups in this country who are the highest income earning groups in this country, aside from Jews, if you want to categorize them in one category, Japanese Americans and Chinese Americans make more money than anybody else. More money than Americans of English extraction, more money than Americans of Polish extraction, more money than Americans of Italian extraction, of German extraction. So I said, Carlos, the relationship between an image on the screen and success in life is what? Zero. It doesn't mean anything. Now, we can have this debate, I said, Carlos. You obviously want to get into Hollywood, and I understand why you're frustrated. I can talk to you about your frustrations. But if you're telling me that our argument means anything at all in the streets, in day-to-day lives of people, you are flat out dead wrong. What matters is, are you prepared? Did you get an education? Are the quality of your schools excellent? Are you engaging in crime? Are you engaging in drugs? Are the men standing up to their moral and financial responsibility and assuming responsibility for children that they bring into the world? That's what matters.
One thing I noticed on this debate, man, it was like the crowd was like very one-sided. I think everybody there was going for Steve Coakley at the time. Whenever Larry would say something that just made sense, he would get little to no applause. You know what I mean? But very interesting, man, to see him go into the the Lions Den. with a crowd that obviously don't really aren't there for you, aren't there to praise you to a certain extent. You know what I mean? But you still have something to say. You know what I mean? So let's get back into it.
So much of life depends on our attitudes, on whether or not we limit ourselves, on whether or not we perceive ourselves to be victims or victors. I was working out once when I was living in Cleveland, and black man, Locker and I were next to each other. We were getting dressed, ready to go home. We started talking. I'd seen him around, but we never really exchanged anything. And I said, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "I am a computer consultant, and I consult black mayors in Ohio. When they're trying to upgrade their computer systems, they call me, I come in, and I recommend it." He said, "What do you do?" I said, "I place lawyers with law firms and corporations. A corporation or a law firm wants a lawyer with experience, they contact me, I try and find somebody, match them together." He said, "Oh, I didn't realize that there was an organization that placed minority lawyers." I said, "I never said I placed minority lawyers.
Right.
98% of the lawyers I place are not minorities, and 100% of my clients are headed up by a CEO or a managing director who is not minority." And he began complaining about his business. He told me that he doesn't make very much money because the government doesn't pay fast, the government doesn't pay competitive free market dollars, and every time the mayor loses an election, he has to start a relationship with a new guy. I said, "Why are you limiting your business to black mayors?" He said, "Well, I said, why aren't you a computer consultant to anybody who needs your services?" When I started my business, I got lots of calls, and I got lots of calls from people to sell me insurance. Probably 20, 30 people came by, just dropped by. Finally, this black guy came by, looked good, sounded good, spoke English. If you ever dealt with a life insurance person, you know what I'm talking about. So we went to lunch. He outlined what he thought I needed. I needed key man insurance, he explained that to me. I needed fire safety, he explained that to me. And I said, "I assume you're doing quite well." He said, "Well, actually, I'm struggling." I said, "Why?" "I can't believe it. You're the best life insurance guy who's ever come by." He said, "Well, you know, black people don't have that much money." I said, "Your clientele is all black?" He said, "All but 2 of my customers are black."
Mm-hmm.
And he worked for a major insurance company. I won't give you the name. And I said, "Tell me, did they tell you to target the black market?" He said, "No." I said, "Did they imply it?" He said, "No." I said, "Did they subtly suggest it?" He said, "No." I said, "You've just now said black people don't have that much money. Why would you target black people when they don't have that much money?" 30 other insurance salesmen have come by me to sell me stuff, all of whom were white. They took a look at me and they did not turn around. Why are you doing that? He had no real answer.
I like his 2 stories to begin with because they kind of depict like you should be basing your especially with your finances based off who is most qualified for the job versus what color their skin is. So like these 2 stories kind of drove that point home, and it kind of made it clear, you know what I mean, the importance of doing one over the other. You know what I mean? You're only setting yourself up for failure if you base it off a color of somebody's skin or a certain race, or you're trying to help a certain race. You know what I mean? I think if you have, especially if you're running a business, you have to set it up where if you're in the place of hiring somebody, you should definitely try to hire somebody with the best qualifications. I mean, not necessarily from a different back or from a minority background. You know what I mean? So it makes sense, man. Say what you want about Larry Elder, man. He's making sense, dog. Come on.
The reason the young lady just yelled out, "Is Hollywood and the media racist?" The reason I'm starting out this way, and I hope you'll be patient with me, is because this is a larger issue than that. The issue is about, is this country racist? The issue is about whether or not people who are prepared, who have talent, who are willing to work hard can make it in America. That's really what this is about. We could apply this debate to Hollywood. We could apply it to the oil industry. We could apply it to the real estate industry. But unless we have an understanding and an acceptance, and hopefully a sense of hope and optimism, nothing matters.
That's all facts. The crowd they ain't trying to hear that though. I don't understand. Like, how you not trying to hear that? And I like the message here where he's telling people to take a step back, look at it from a broader scope, and understand: is this an issue in America? Yes. Can you let this stop you from accomplishing what your goals are? Absolutely not, man. And the crowd is just not trying to hear it.
We are constantly worried about what others think of us, to the exclusion of what we think about ourselves. And unless a people has dignity and self-respect and pride, all bets are off. The greatest collegiate football player in America today is somebody named Randy Moss. Many people in this room have probably never heard of him. And the reason you never heard of him is because despite the fact that he was an outstanding high school athlete, broke all kinds of records as a wide receiver, when he was 18 years old and a senior in high school, someone in his class called him a nigger. Randy Moss had been recruited by Notre Dame, by Florida State, by UCLA, and after this kid in his class called him a nigger, Randy Moss beat the crap out of him. Because Randy Moss was 18 years old and therefore was an adult, he was prosecuted and tried and pled guilty to assault. Bye-bye Notre Dame, bye-bye Florida State, bye-bye UCLA. He ended up going to a college in West Virginia that isn't even a top-ranked college, where he is competing against substandard competition. He'll still make it to the NFL. But because he did not compete against top-notch quality competition, because he did not get the exposure on Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7, he will make substantially less money now than he would have had he not beaten the crap out of this guy who probably is working the deep fry at McDonald's as we speak.
And the one key takeaway here is, imagine if Randy Moss wasn't as talented as he turned out to be. What if he made that mistake and that literally cost him his whole future? We obviously see how it turned out for him regardless, but that's 1% of 1%. A lot of people in this world cannot make that same mistake and go on to be super ultimately successful.
So what was accomplished here? What was accomplished? What was proven?
And even in that comment there, I'm not sure if you guys heard it, but somebody yelled out, "He didn't sell out." And that's shameful, bro, because you don't want to promote that kind of retaliation over a word. You can't let one word control you and your emotions, your anger, to make you do an action that could cost you your future. We live in this culture where we have to retaliate, we have to get back, we have to do something, or our rep is on the line. And in most situations, that can land you in jail. That can land you in prison, or worse.
Is the media racist? It's difficult to get a film made. Forrest Gump was one of the most popular films ever. Grossed over $600 million. The woman who produced it is married to a Hollywood executive. It took her almost 10 years to get the film off the ground because nobody thought it would make money. Star Wars, the most successful trilogy ever, was turned down by every major studio because nobody thought it would make money. Someone once described Hollywood as a place where executives stand around in a place where lightning once struck, hoping it will strike again. That's narrowness. That's stupidity. That's rigidity. That's playing it safe. But it ain't racism. I'll tell you about Hollywood, and I know a number of people here. I've talked to probably hundreds of people in Hollywood. Let me tell you what the deal is. If you're a Hollywood executive and someone comes to you with a project and you greenlight it and it fails, you're in trouble. You can lose your job. That's why you get Star Wars, Star Wars 2, Star Wars 3, The Son of Star Wars, Star Wars Takes a Bride. However, if you say no, you still get your stock options. You still get your parking space. So the pressure is to do what's worked in the past. The pressure is to do what's safe. The pressure is to do what has made money in the past. The pressure is to hope that lightning strikes twice in the same spot. But that is not racism.
I like how he kind of went through all those different backgrounds of other movies, like the Forrest Gump example, and he's telling you how hard, how difficult it was to get that movie off the ground, how long it took her, how much work she had to put in. She had to be in the right places, saying dating the right person, talking to the right person. Like all the stars had to align. And as we know, that is still one of the best selling watch movies in America and in the world. So the key takeaway there is be the best of the best, man. That's where it's going to have to take the grind, the sacrifice, the effort. You know what I mean? Everything Larry Elder is saying right here is still all facts. Let's keep it going.
It's about attitude. Nowadays, with technology the way it is, you can make a film. You get $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 together, you can make a movie. Technology is such now, it's cheaper than ever. You don't have to have training, you don't have to have background. Spike Lee wrote a movie about his first film, She's Gotta Have It, called The Making of She's Gotta Have It. I recommend that you buy it. Step by step by step, he tells you how to do it. You don't have to go to film school, don't have to know anything about a camera, don't even have to have any money. But you have to persevere. Robert Townsend made Hollywood Shuffle on a credit card. El Mariachi, $30,000. It can be done if you are willing to work hard, if you're willing to suffer rejection, if you persevere, if you have vision, if you have love for what you are trying to pull off, it can be done. And don't let anybody tell you it can't.
Tough crowd, man. I don't understand. Tough crowd. Y'all, listen.
I'm not here to defend Hollywood. I am most certainly not here to defend the media. I've got my own issues with them. But I will tell you that whatever problems we have, whether we don't like the fact that too much TV news has crime, whether we don't like the fact that not enough emphasis is placed on education, these are matters that have very little to do with racism and everything to do with news directors attempting to put on the screen what they think consumers want. And rightly or wrongly, consumers want what they see on television news.
And that still continues to this day. I mean, turn to VH1, you got all these trash shows on here showing minorities acting a whole fool, right? Doing the most ridiculous stuff for views, clicks, likes, and shares, man. But what people don't realize is there are people out here watching this stuff thinking this is really how black people behave. This is really how black people speak. This is really how black families move around in this world. And there's the problem. Some folks can't separate entertainment from reality. And that's one of the bigger issues with the media, man, and what they show and how they show certain minorities. But I mean, it also comes with a certain accountability, for the individual as well. You know what I mean? You have to know better than to be out here, making yourself look crazy, making yourself sound crazy, embarrassing your family, embarrassing your mom. And it just, it's all bad, man. So his statement right here can still be applied in today's day and age. Let's keep it going.
All my life, I've had this almost criminal optimism. I didn't care what happened. The glass was always going to be half full. Quincy Jones. You can't just sit there and wait for people to give you that golden dream. You've got to get out there and make it happen for yourself. Diana Ross. Anger is an emotion that if you carry around for a long period of time, it doesn't allow you to live. John Singleton, director of Boys in the Hood. When you expect good, it's available constantly, and it makes itself a reality in your life. Alfre Woodard. I don't think Hollywood is racist. I think Hollywood lives and dies on greed. Jobs are not given because of race. They're predicated completely on money. Morgan Freeman.
They're not trying to hear him. They're not trying to hear him. He's giving y'all, was that
Morgan?
Examples of folks that have been in the business, all right? And they're all kind of showing you it's all about your mentals, all about your attitudes, all about how you view things, and how you are in 100% control of your own vision. Understand how hard it is going to be to change somebody else's vision when you're looking at the same object, man. Let's keep it going. They're laughing, but he hasn't said
Let's talk
anything
about the
wrong,
media,
bro.
and let's talk about Hollywood specifically. Newspapers,
That's dangerous.
obviously an important part of the media. Are newspapers racist? Are newspapers biased? Recent survey by the Gannett Foundation Freedom Forum, a liberal organization, 1992, reporters, 89% of them voted for Bill Clinton. 7% voted for George Bush. 1972, probably the most liberal person ever to run for presidency, George McGovern. 81% of reporters and senior editors voted for George McGovern. Again, probably the most liberal person ever to run for the presidency. 1996, 62% of journalists described themselves as liberal Democrats. A liberal Democrat, as you know, is far more likely to support outreach, far more likely to support race and gender-based preferences, affirmative action. Same thing with editorial writers. 45% describe themselves as liberal and democratic, as against only 23% who describe themselves as leaning the other way. Reporters are, by and large, quite liberal, quite sympathetic to minorities. Indeed, the numbers are now over 10 to 15% of all reporters are persons of color. LA Times in particular, the editor of that paper received an award for diversity because about 20% or more of his staff, people of color. 1994, nearly 40% of all interns in newspapers, people of color. And nearly all major newspapers have recruitment staffs and in-house diversity staffs specifically designed to recruit and hire qualified minority journalists. New York Times, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, LA Times, all major newspapers are doing this. Hollywood. A UCLA U.S. News and World Report survey of the top entertainment figures in Hollywood show them to be substantially more likely to be liberal Democrats than the rest of the country. 91% of them are pro-choice on abortion. The charge is made, of course, that Hollywood is controlled by Jews. Let's talk about that. I mentioned the 7 or so major corporations that handle most of the business and distribution in Hollywood. Time Warner, Disney, the Bronfman Company, Rupert Murdoch, Sony, Sumner Redstone of Viacom. There's a book called How the Jews Discovered Hollywood, and there is no question that many of the executives in Hollywood are Jewish. Now then, is that a bad thing? There is a magazine I'm sure you're familiar with called Emerge. Emerge is a magazine that had the picture of Clarence Thomas on the cover, holding a lantern that said, Clarence, Uncle Thomas, lawn jockey to the far right. Well, that magazine had an article about Jewish influence in America. They discovered something very interesting. Jews were the least racist group in America, including blacks. The following questions were asked in this Emerge magazine article, and some of you may actually be interested in reading it. It's in September 1994. I urge you to take a look at it.
Then I gotta read it. It's so disrespectful.
The following statements were asked of the general population
No.
and were asked of Jews.
5 minutes, Larry.
Okay.
It's like it's one thing to heckle. All right, I get it. You want to heckle. You want to throw a little bit of shade on what you don't agree with what he's saying. I get it. But at the same time, now they're getting to the point where they're just disrupting what he's trying to say. They're just stopping him, and he's gonna get to a point. I wonder if he's gonna address that, man. Because like, there's no way I'm letting you just continue to do this nonsense while I'm talking. Hold on.
Asked of the general population and were asked of
Oh,
Jews.
no.
5 minutes, Larry.
Okay. Blacks complain too much about racism. 62% of the American people said yes. 47% of Jews said yes. Blacks stick to themselves. 58% of the general public said yes. 42% of Jews said yes. Blacks prefer welfare. 35% of the American public said yes. 19% of Jews agreed with that. Blacks are less ambitious. 29% of the general public said yes. 19% of Jews said yes to that. Blacks are too loud and pushy. 27% of the American public said yes to that. 13% of Jews said yes. Blacks are not hardworking. 20% of the American people said yes. Only 14% of Jews agreed with that. Blacks are not as honest. 15% of the American people said yes. Only 9% of Jews said yes. Blacks have less native intelligence. You know, people have paid $15 to hear Mr. Coakley and myself debate, and I would appreciate it if you allow me to finish.
For real though. I mean,
because I know you intend to give Mr. Coakley some respect, and I hope you'll do likewise with me. You know, just as a thought, I don't expect to change very many people's minds here. I really don't. But I know there's some young people here. I see some young people out here. And I'm really talking to you. Because some of the older people are angry and are unwilling to listen to information. I've given you a lot of information. Whether you like it or not, you can get on the internet and look it up for yourself. The Time magazine recently did a study, and they asked black adults whether racism was a major problem in America, and the overwhelming numbers said yes. They also asked the same question of black teens. And the majority of black teens also said yes. However, they asked a follow-up question to the black teens. And they said, though, in your own personal lives, is racism a major factor, a small factor, or no factor? And nearly 90% of the black teens said racism was little or no factor in their own lives. So I'm talking to you.
they ain't like that one.
Guild, the Screen Actors Guild, The Screen Actors Guild, 1996, reported that 12% of all film and TV jobs went to blacks. That is the same percentage of population in blacks. Screen Directors Guild, 1995, 3.9% of all the jobs went to black directors. 1996, 5.2%, which is a substantial rise in just 1 year. Commercials. Screen Actors Guild reports that Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, and blacks get 21% of all the commercial jobs. Blacks get, of all commercial jobs, approximately 12%. And a study by Minorities Markets Alert, a New York City newsletter that tracks the extent to which minorities get commercials, reported in 1995 that black faces appeared in nearly 40% of the commercials in New York, and the trend is similar nationwide. Black hiring is up at the actor level. Black hiring is up at the director level. Black hiring is up at the producer level. I just went down to my mailbox before this debate. This is the cover of Ebony magazine. Oprah, Debbie, Whitney, Tracy sparkle in the year of black women producers. Read the article and you'll find out that black women producers are coming and coming strong. Hollywood is not racist. Hollywood is rough, it is tough, and if you are unprepared to struggle, if you are unprepared to get rejection, then you should perhaps consider selling shoes. It is a tough, tough business, but if you've got vision and you're willing to work hard and you're willing to persevere, you can make it, and people are doing it every single day. Thank you very much.
All right, you guys, that was the ending of Larry Elder's intro here. This is a long one, so again, I would split it up into, I think, 2 parts. So far for the intro here, from what I'm getting, listen, the crowd was not trying to hear what he had to say. I think the majority of the folks here came to listen, came to get information, and probably left with a lot of information. But you had the select few folks in the crowd throughout the entire time, just kind of like heckling him a little bit. But he came with the facts, man. He came with, he gave good examples of other races working extremely hard just to get one movie off the ground, what they had to do, what they had to endure, and the patience they had to reach their goals and reach their dreams. And it's not going to be any easier for us. That's not a real thing. It's going to be, if not this harder or the same. Now, do I believe there's racism in media? Yeah, but at the end of the day, you still have to find a way through, man. You still have to look at the glass, like he said, from his example earlier, half full at all times. You can't not let anybody else control your dreams, control your goals, and control your outcome of your life. I've seen several people, just in my personal life, come from nothing, you know what I mean, and make it out, and now they're doing big things within their community. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing on up, you guys. If you made it to this far in the video, I know it's a long one. All right, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys click like, subscribe to this content. Comment down below your thoughts on racism in the media and racism in Hollywood. What do you guys think? Is it a real thing? Leave your comments down below. I always check them out. So until next time, y'all be safe out there. Peace.